Hi friends, so today we are going to decode the charts of Osho and Sri Ravi Shankar. Recently there was a video by Sri Ravi Shankar and he made some observations and remarks about Osho, and after that this topic has definitely gone viral. So I wanted to present the actual view of what is the emphasis of Osho's chart and Sri Ravi Shankar's chart in Vedic astrology. So let me share some things about their charts. Okay, yeah, here we go. So Osho versus Sri Ravi Shankar, Kundli secrets revealed. So I'll go in a little bit of depth. I'm sure other astrologers have also covered this topic, but I'm going to go into some depth and show you some of the key features and how they really correlate with the lives of these two great spiritual masters. And then of course there's always a debate who is the greatest and stuff like that. So let's go into it straight away. So let's look at Osho first. So Osho was someone who had this Kundali. His ascendant was Taurus, very important. We always look at Lagna, the ascendant, the rising sign. It's connected with the 8th house because Taurus is ruled by Venus, and you can see a barrage of planets in the 8th house. So a lot of his life is about the 8th house matters. And what is the 8th house in astrology? Here we can see 8th house, and it is in number 9, which is the sign of Sagittarius. So it is very importantly, 8th house is in astrology. See, each house represents something in your life. So his thing, everything is in 8th house. And what is 8th house? We call it as Dushtana because it is one of the most intense and sort of terrible houses, difficult houses. But it has a lot of power. It has a lot of power of transformation. The 8th house, transformation. 8th house is death. 8th house is taboo topics. Everything which is dark, deep is 8th house. Subconscious is 8th house. So we will see how Osho's work correlates with that. And then of course his moon is also in the 8th house. His sun is again in number 8 sign, which is number 8 sign, which is again Scorpio. So lot of emphasis on this dark, deep aspect of the 8th house and 8th sign. 8th house is the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius we know is the sign of travel, spirituality. So let's look more into this, what we can see. So we've seen that Osho's majority of the followers and his fame came from foreign countries. People from foreign countries. And also his spirituality brand was not about Indians exactly, or about the traditional Hindu spirituality where you go to temples, where you go to chant mantras and stuff like that. His spirituality was all encompassing. He was talking about Zen, he was talking about Tantra, but more importantly the 8th house emphasis that I mentioned was there. So let's see how. So what is this picture? He is giving Shaktipat, transmission of energy through the third eye center, which is here. And he is trying to push some energy, give some transmission and give them a certain experience and connection with the divine. So this is very esoteric, this is very energetic, connected definitely with the 8th house, Shaktipat, connected with the 8th house. And you can see there are these foreign disciples, then Indian disciples, celebrity like Vinod Khanna, because there was this mystery, there was this intrigue of the 8th house that Osho was dealing with. And that's why people were so attracted to him. Someone who's a big star, Vinod Khanna, maybe he would have surpassed Amitabh Bachchan if he had not gone to Osho's commune and become spiritual. But nonetheless, he was a huge star at that time. I think only Amitabh Bachchan, Vinod Khanna and Rajesh Khanna were there at that time. So he was a great star, and you could see him receiving Shaktipat, where Osho is giving him this mystical transmission of energy. Okay. Now what was Osho's stand on religion? Osho's stand was religion is a disease. He would say it in different ways. Right? So many religions in the world, no results have come. right? And Osho, why was he talking about a change and transformation and disrupting religion? Why was he giving quotes like this? Because 8th house, the house of transformation, is in Sagittarius, the ninth sign. And ninth sign is always about transformation. Ninth sign is about religion. Sagittarius ninth, natural ninth house is religion. So he was breaking those taboos, those old notions about religion. He was talking against all the priests, Shankaracharyas, organized religions. Okay. Then Tantra, one of the major topics associated with Osho is Tantra. Tantra is again mystical. It is about the subconscious, it is about sexuality, it is about death, it is about all the taboo topics, Pancha Makara as we call it in Indian philosophy. We call it Pancha Makara. All the 5 taboo substances is used in Tantra. So again, he spoke so much about taboo topics like Tantra. Then, Main Mrityu Sikhata Hun, that is one of his famous books, teachings about death. 8th house is the house of death and longevity. And so much of focus of Osho was on death. His ashram was near a burning ghat. Then his very classical, one of his first books was Sambhog Se Samadhi Ki Or. Sambhog Se Samadhi means sex to super consciousness. Again he is talking about a taboo topic which no one has spoken, and that this is like ages ago. This is I think 50s or 60s. Not now. And he was talking about it 50-60 years back. That was the kind of revolutionary and rebel he was, and he said this understanding of sexuality and taboo topics is important, otherwise you're not going to grow. So then he was talking about emotional wellness, because 8th house ruler Jupiter is in the 4th sign, Cancer, exalted Jupiter. So he had this great authority on how to work with your emotions, how to do different kinds of therapies, how to deal with your subconscious, the unconsciousness, the subconscious aspect which rules our life. Our subconscious dominates everything. Repression and expression of emotions. This was his still date in Osho centers. We are doing different kinds of meditations which are connected with releasing unwanted emotions, unwanted energy, catharsis as he would call it. So his whole focus was on 8th house, the house of psychology. So much of his life was all about that. And he gave 8th house also the house of research. That's why he was able to write so many books. He read over 1 lakh books before the age of 20. More than 1 lakh books. And the librarian in the village where he used to go in MP, in Madhya Pradesh, the librarian said there were books issued in his name which were not issued, not taken by anyone else. No one borrowed those books. Only Osho took them. Okay. Then let's go further. Where, of course, Osho's ashram was also near the burning ghat. Death was an important thing. They used to celebrate the death of people who would die in the ashram. So death was made into a celebration. It was not made into some kind of sadness, some kind of mourning. He saw death as a celebration. And that is also the aspect of, again, deep, dark, esoteric connection with death. So you celebrate that, right? The Aghoris, the Tantric mystics, they celebrate death, or they use some alchemy connected with death, right? So that connection we see with Osho, and that is his biggest contribution. But people are only stuck that he's into free sex and blah blah blah. Of course, that aspect was also there. Scandals were also there, because 8th house is connected with scandals. So we can see here. So far I was explaining you this 8th house emphasis on so much of taboo topics, these kind of subjects. 8th house ruler Jupiter is again in the 3rd house. So he was explaining this very well. 2nd house, the house of education, is Pluto. Pluto again, deep dark subconscious. Research. Going into depth, digging into depth of things which are unknown. He formed a very unconventional community. So Uranus, Rahu in the 11th house of community, in the sign of Pisces. Right? And now he is facing, as Saturn is transiting through Pisces this year, he is facing some form of resistance, some form of defamation, things like that. Right? And when Saturn was in Capricorn few years back, he was facing, and Saturn was somewhere here in Sagittarius and Capricorn. The Wild Wild Country Netflix series came. So you see, even after the death of a person, the transits are relevant. This nobody will tell you, very few people will tell you, but even after the death, it is relevant. So that controversy happened when Sagittarius Capricorn area, where most of his planets were there, and then now Saturn is transiting the 11th house, and again there is a controversy which is raised by Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. Now Jupiter is in the 3rd house. This is very good for a guru, teacher, counselor, because Jupiter is exalted in the 3rd house. Very good for traveling also. He has Ketu in the 5th house, which also Sri Sri Ravi Shankar has. Ketu in 5th house, Rahu in 11th house. So we'll see the significance of that. Ketu is connected, past life connection with mantra, tantra, with discourses. This is also coming from their past life. So with Osho, the story was that he was already very close to enlightenment in his past life. He was probably a Tibetan monk or something like that. And then in this life, he attained to that in 21 years. Okay, so this is a very interesting chart. 8th house has so much emphasis. His 12th house, the house of moksha, is connected to 8th house. Almost everything is connected to 8th house. So in a very simple way, I say this is the seed of his chart, 8th house. And that is so important, right? Also other people's money. So he had a lot of these Rolls Royce cars, right? So that is 8th house is other people's money. That's why he had all these Rolls Royce cars. Other people's money, donations coming to him. Right? 8th house is legacy, inheritance, getting other people's money, can be alimony, can be inheritance, but in his case he was a guru, so he was getting donations, he was getting complete surrender from his devotees. Somewhere in 1985 he was arrested during the Ketu Antardasha, and Ketu was in the 6th house, Ketu was transiting the 6th house, and Ketu is in the 5th house. So Ketu is always about breaks, Ketu is about transformation, Ketu is about cutting something, suffering, cutting. So that's when he went to jail. He had to cut off. His stint in the USA was cut off by this jail arrest, and then he was released, and then he had to leave the US. He was deported from the US, as far as I know. Then his death happened somewhere in, Osho's death happened somewhere in 1990. So again that is a Jupiter moon period, and moon is again in the 8th house. Jupiter also the 8th house ruler. So he died during the period of Jupiter moon, which is the, and moon is not well positioned in his chart. If we see, if we go back, we see moon is not well positioned. Moon is sitting with Saturn in the 8th house. Moon is also opposite Pluto. It is with Mars, it is with Venus, Mercury also. Venus, Mercury also gives art, beauty, aesthetics. So his ashram is very aesthetic. Even today if you go to his Pune ashram, you will see such beauty, such aesthetics. And they did much greater things in the US also. A lot of beautiful things, aesthetic things also. There were also scandals because 8th house is involved. Now, let's talk a little bit about Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, who is a modern day spiritual leader. His career started somewhere in the 80s. Okay. So Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, relatively conservative person, but he has some very good placements. As we can see, Mars is exalted in his chart, Jupiter is exalted. The Lagna ruler Saturn is going to the 11th house with Rahu. Now this Saturn with Rahu means again he will work a lot with foreigners as per Nadi astrology. He has Moon Mercury Ketu combination here. Moon is in Taurus, exalted. Moon is exalted, sitting with benefic Mercury. Then we have Jupiter aspecting his Lagna Lord. So many favorable combinations in his chart. Of course, it's not all easy, but it's not as dramatic and a very dramatic and terrible chart like Osho's chart. Why I'm saying dramatic and terrible is because the difficult charts are the people who actually get the greatest, biggest iconic success. So now we are talking about Osho, who has died almost 35 years back. And we are talking about Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, who is currently living. So why is Osho being remembered after 35 years? Because he had such of this intense, terrible, difficult chart, which also has great potential, great depth. And that's why he had that kind of life, that kind of. Maybe if he was not awakened, not enlightened with that kind of chart, he would have died as an addict or madman or something like that. We don't know if that consciousness had not awakened. So the consciousness level has to be there to bring up the good aspects in anyone's chart. So with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar again, Jupiter is exalted, and we see that he is a great guru, great with the masses, very happy. Jupiter gives smiling, happy face, right? So he was always very happy. You will see him smiling, laughing, making jokes, and very pleasant presence. I've been to his ashram in Bangalore, and we have something to learn from all of them, and beautiful teachings, very light, very bright, and very intense also, because Mars is on his Lagna. So one of the beautiful works and contributions of Sri Sri Ravi Shankar is connected with the terrorists. I'll talk about that a little more. But before that, we see in Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, there's a lot of emphasis on this 5th house. See, 11th house looking at the 5th house, Saturn, and then there are a lot of 5th house planets here. And 5th house, again, as I told you, is the house of he also has Ketu in the 5th house. So his past life, just like Osho, his past life gift is connected with mantra or discourse or tantra, esoteric knowledge. This gift is there because Ketu is in the 5th house. All the people with Ketu in 5th house will have this gift. Another thing with Ketu in 5th house is they will not have much luck with their love life. Now, why I'm saying this is because less luck in love life, and that's why with Osho we saw, that he faced a lot of death in his life. His own girlfriend, his first love, she died. Now with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, I don't know if there is any kind of story like that, but he has been single. Officially has been single throughout his life, as far as I know. So generally it's good for them to renounce. That's when they find love. Now they find the love of the whole world. If they run after one person, they will be miserable, and they will not get it, because Ketu is past life burden. So past life karma which is blocking. But with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, of course the combinations are slightly different, but he has focused with this kind of 5th house, focus is on teaching. Focus is on nurturing. Osho's focus was on revelation. Now Sri Sri Ravi Shankar also we see Pluto in the 8th house. So he has the power, he has the depth. He has that very intense power to transmit a lot of things to the masses. 195 countries he has a following, you see. So that I'm not saying that his chart is weak or something. It has a lot of potential. In fact, he's done a more stable job, steady job than Osho in many ways. So we have to appreciate everything. Okay. So one of his books is called Celebrating Silence. So 5th house, again, this activation with Ketu, Moon, with Mercury, Ketu. Mercury is speech, Ketu is silence. So how to silence yourself? So the second program in Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's Art of Living is about silence. Advanced courses, 4 days silence. They put you in complete silence. Then one of his meditations, powerful meditations, are connected with mantras. Osho did not emphasize on mantras, but Sri Sri Ravi Shankar emphasizes on mantras because 5th house has so many planets, Moon, Mercury, Ketu, 3 planets. So his emphasis is on mantras, his emphasis is on conventional spirituality also. He was also the Pandit priest with Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, who was his guru, who was his teacher. So his meditations are connected a lot with mantras. His Sudarshan Kriya itself is connected with mantra, breath, pranayam, all these things. So 5th house teachings, Then of course the controversies connected with him are also connected with land. One of his major controversies was connected with land grabbing, something like that. And this was the statement which came in the news. So that was again, Taurus is connected with land, Ketu is over there, Moon, Mars, Mercury is there. Of course, I am not doing a very technical analysis right now, but you can see it with Ketu, Taurus being so prominent and Ketu being there, Saturn being opposite. You are seeing this problem with law and order connected with land grabbing, land encroachment. These kind of allegations have come. One of the most important work is connected with terrorism, what he has done. And I have seen this with my own eyes. There were militants, there were these young boys who were ex-militants, they had surrendered. So as a reform, the government had sent them to Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's ashram in Pune on the Triveni river. So actually they were staying in the ashram, doing yoga, meditation, eating certain very specific diet. They were given special nice good diet with proteins and stuff like that. And they were put through a lot of yoga, meditation, exercise for complete transformation. So this is one of his biggest contributions, to transform those boys, those men who had completely gone into a very militant lifestyle. He did it with Kashmir, some militants from Kashmir. He did it with militants from Assam and some parts of the northeast. And we also see he's been a peace negotiator, peace mediator. Because Mars is on the Lagna, exalted. So he's drawn to these war zones, but Jupiter is opposite. And Saturn is also aspecting Mars. So what is happening is he's drawn to those war zones, but he is doing the job of peacekeeping, negotiations. Even Babri Masjid case, he was a negotiator. He was a mediator, right? So he was doing the work of peacekeeping, and he has this popular, very, diplomatic quality to him. So that comes into play. So we can see rebuilding Iraq, healing Ukraine, all these things he is involved in wherever the war zones are involved. So he has a great contribution in this regard, but it's a different essence from Osho's chart, as you can see. And I don't want to bore you with the technical details, but this is how you can see the essence of their life is so different, and we can see it in their chart very clearly. Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's essence is more of education, sharing, knowledge, and Osho's was more about revealing secrets, breaking the taboos, transformation. So very different visions. So both of them, no doubt they will never agree with each other's style of working. They will never agree, right? And then we can see that, November 13, 1981, Art of Living, the organization of Sri Sri Ravi Shankar was formed. And that was during a Saturn period. Saturn is in his 11th house, as we can see. Saturn is in his 11th house, which is the house of community. It is with Rahu. So these kind of people with Rahu in 11th house, they always have to grow community. So people say Saturn is a bad period, but for sadhana it is very good, and he founded an organization for sadhana and service. His 3 S's are that: Seva, Sadhana, Satsang. And Saturn is leveraging in the 11th house with that. Isn't it beautiful? Right? And of course it was a Jupiter Mahadasha when he founded it. So he got into the field as a guru during Jupiter exalted Mahadasha. Okay, and also we know he was a priest with Maharshi Mahesh Yogi. Okay, so now the South Node in Leo 5th house, North Node in 11th house. We can see North Node, this is as per James Braha, North Node in 11th house. North Node in 11th house. What happens? Rahu in 11th house. Both Sri Sri and Osho, Rahu in 11th house. So what happens? The person's greatest growth, evolution and fulfillment comes through performing altruistic acts for society, getting involved with groups and friends, developing sense of detachment. In past lives they may have been extremely proud, renowned, ego-oriented. Now he is here to care for people in this community. So both Sri Sri Ravi Shankar and Osho devoted their life for groups, for their sangha, for their community. Right? And this is what a person has to do when Rahu is in the 11th house. But what we do is we get stuck in our egotism and we are not able to implement the potential of Rahu in 11th house. That is the problem. So let go of emotional attachment. See, we can read it properly. I'll just open maybe if it is there in another screen. Okay, anyway. So we can read some of these things. It's a beautiful book by James Braha called How to Be a Great Astrologer. He was kind enough to send me a copy. How to Be a Great Astrologer, Planetary Aspects Explained. I'll show it to you in a bit when I make the screen full. So let go of emotional attachments, should try to locate and abolish outdated forms and structures, implement new innovative efficient methods. This is what Osho did. They should not place great attention on children, intense love affairs, deeply personal pursuits. So that's what, no? So they were smart enough. They had that intuition to not go run after love affairs, romance, and things like that. But instead serve society. In serving society, you will get whatever the divine has to bless you with. He should favor his mind, not his impulse, must cultivate intellect and allow rational mind to take precedence. Science and research endeavors are favored. Rules, regulations, dogma are not greatly regarded. Much more impersonal style of functioning. So all these characteristics. So Rahu tells you your future karma, your purpose in this life. But most of us don't obey Rahu. We do the opposite. We do the opposite. We do Ketu because Ketu is past life. It is our comfort zone. Right? So I think this is the last thing I had to share, and I hope this has been a good session for you. I'll stop sharing, and before that I'll show you this book again. It's James Braha's book, the How to Be a Great Astrologer, the Planetary Aspects Explained. So I think I've tried to shed light based on the life of Osho and Sri Sri Ravi Shankar on what is prominent in their charts. Of course, details, dates and all we can discuss when we are studying astrology or when we are doing more individual sessions. But the aim is awareness, and I hope this has helped you to become more aware how astrology can corroborate the details in our life, right? How we can align it. So I hope it was useful. Cheers. Have a good night.